Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Brian Will from Brian Will, based in Atlanta, United States of America. Thanks for your time today, Brian.
Hey, Troy, I'm glad to be here, man. It's going to be fun.
Let's start with how we know each other. So Diana from Podcast Cola has put us onto some great guests in the past. I'm sure you're not going to disappoint us today.
Yeah, she's awesome, man. She does a great job.
We'll tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
I have had a lot of businesses over the years. Currently, I'll tell you that I own a small chain of restaurants. I have a real estate company, and I've just launched a mastermind organization working with entrepreneurs from we call well-funded startups through 10 million in revenue. But my background was in insurance and technology. My very first company was landscaping, and then we went into insurance and did a couple VC exits and a private equity exit. Did some consulting. So I've kind of been around the block in the business world.
Yeah, fantastic. And you've written one book and you have another one coming out soon?
Nope. I've written two, and number three is coming out soon. Yeah,
Right.
I just finished the first draft of the manuscript, so it's in editing right now.
Okay, great. Maybe tell us a little bit about those books.
Yeah, so the first book I wrote was actually, it started out as a book for my kids, and it's called, some people don't like my title, by the way. It's called I Give the Dumb Kids Hope. And it was really about a story about me because I failed out of high school and didn't go to college and ended up building, companies worth $500 million over the years. And gets back to my kids then went to private school and college and got master's degrees and all this. And my daughter was having a conversation with me one night and she's like, Daddy, education's so important. And I said, I know it's important, but if it's so important, how do you explain me? And she said, well, Daddy, we were talking about you in school and we decided you give the dumb kids hope. And so I thought that was a funny story. So that's kind of my first book, and it's business. I mean, it's all about my life and how I got from, an abusive childhood through building companies. The second book is called The Dropout Multimillionaire. And that is a book geared towards what we call startups through 10 million in revenue. And it's about the soft skills in business, not the hard skills. It's about the mindset. It's more about why businesses fail outside of not knowing what they're doing, whatever specific skill set they've got. So that book is all about building and growing a business. The third book is called No, and it's the psychology of sales and negotiation. I call it 40 lessons in negotiation from a street smart negotiator.
Yep.
So that book's coming out shortly.
Great. And how did you start out?
Well, failed out of high school, managed to get back in and graduate with a D average. Got out of high school at that point, joined the military, got kicked out of my house, had to join the military. Got off active duty, tried to hold a job, couldn't. So I decided to go into landscaping because I figured how hard can it be to mow grass and dig holes? Mm-hmm. So I got into the landscaping business. Over 10 years, I built 7 franchises, got out of that business, went into the insurance business. I've always had that entrepreneurial drive. I call it the hope drive. So I've always said, if you're in a job, you don't really have hope of making huge money and big deals. But if you're in your own business, I call it being in the game. If you're in the game, you get that hope of winning. And so I've always been in the game.
And so when you started that first landscaping business, what year was that and how old were you?
I'd gotten off active duty. I was 21 years old. I was actually a busboy at Applebee's at the time. Decided to get married. Applebee's is a restaurant chain here. I forgot you're in Australia. Restaurant chain. I was a busboy there. I got married. And so it was 21, 22 years old when I started that first business.
Yeah.
So I was a youngster.
What year was that?
That would be 1987, I believe.
Yep. Great. And what did you end up doing with that landscaping business? Did you sell it on? Or...
So I built it up. I ended up franchising it. I was the franchisor. I had 7 franchises. Got into some trouble with that one because I was a new business owner and didn't know what I was doing. And when I was 29, we ended up losing one contractor, which was 80% of our business. And so the entire thing collapsed around us.
Yeah, shit.
And yeah, well, there are a lot of good lessons I've carried with me the rest of my life. So honestly, Troy, every bad thing that's ever happened to me turned into something better.
Yep.
And that seemed like the end of the world at the time. But honestly, it got me into the next phase of my life, which was in the insurance business, selling insurance, which turned into my first venture capital exit back in 1999. So I'm kind of glad that one failed, to be honest.
Great. And the 2 businesses now that you've got, real estate and restaurant chains, is that franchise, the restaurant?
No, so when I sold two companies in '06 and '08, and I kind of started doing consulting for big companies and direct to consumer sales management. And then, like a lot of people, it's kind of a cliche. You make a lot of money, and the first thing you do is you buy a bar because you think it's fun and easy.
Mm.
So I bought a bar, as I like to say, and after the first year, I'd lost about $50,000. So I decided to buy four more. So I went from one to five and sold that one. This is like 2010. And over the years, I kind of bought and built and sold, and we've kind of did this whole thing. And today we have our own brand called Central City Tavern that we're building. We've got two more under construction, and within 2 years, I'm either going to sell that chain off or I'm going to franchise it. Haven't decided which one yet.
Yeah, great. So you've taken the Richard Branson approach. I think he said that the best way to become a millionaire is to be a billionaire and buy an airline. So you've just done it with bars.
Yeah, yeah. I've learned a lot of lessons in that business, and they do really well today. And I don't have to run them. I have a good team of people, so
Yep,
that's why I can be down here at the beach for the next 2 weeks.
that's great. And what about the real estate business you have now? Tell us a bit about that.
That's really an investment, right? So I'm big into investing in real estate. So I started buying rental properties, commercial and residential. So I have a whole bunch of properties that we own in Georgia and Florida, and I have someone that manages the physical properties, and then I have a team that works at my corporate office that manages the back end of it. So again, I don't have to do anything. I just own it. It throws money off.
Yep, great. And do you have some key numbers you could share to illustrate the growth of maybe we focus on the tavern business?
Gosh, we started the first one. It did about $1 million in revenue. I've bought and sold so many over the years. Today, we're about a $10 million revenue company. We have about 150 employees. We've got 3 more opening in the next year and a half, which will push us up in the 250 employee range and about around the 15 million revenue. So this is probably the most number of employees I've had of all the companies, because we have a lot of part-time, et cetera, in the restaurant business. But in the past, our companies have ranged anywhere from 10 to 50 employees. But my most revenue company did 60 million, and we did that with 30 employees. This one does 10 million with 150 employees. So depends on the industry and sector you're in.
Yeah, what would the full-time equivalent be of those 150? Because you've got a few part-timers. Would it be more like 100 full-time equivalents?
Yeah, about 100, a little over 100.
Yeah. And what year did you start the tavern business up?
2010, I bought the first one.
Yep.
And then we've done about a dozen of them since then.
Great. And how many team members, full-time equivalents, did you start when you bought that first one?
Probably 20. That one restaurant had about 20 employees. Yeah.
That's great growth over 13 years, going from 20 full-time equivalents to 100. That's excellent.
It's good and bad. As you know, there are issues that come with a lot of employees that don't come with a few.
Yes,
so
that's right.
You have to have good insurance and good lawyers and all kinds of crazy stuff now.
Yeah. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Oh, gosh. I was that kid growing up in my 20s who wanted the world and didn't know how to get it. And as I like to say, I failed a lot over that 20-year period until I hit about 40. And then we had launched an internet company in 2003. And by 2004, I think I made $1 million a year that year. That was the first year I really made a lot of money. In 2006, we sold it in an $80 million acquisition. So at that point, I had, if you talk about people who have dream boards, which I had when I was, growing up, I basically got everything I ever wanted on that dream board. And the interesting thing for me, honestly, Troy, was it killed my motivation. I remember we sold that company. I used to tell people, I have no goals and no motivation, and I don't want any. I'd been working my rear end off for 20 years, as I like to say, head down dark to dark, and I needed a break. So I took a little time off, and then I got back into the game because my brain wouldn't stop.
Yep. Yeah, that's how we're wired. Tell us a bit about that internet business that you started up and exited. What did it do?
Yeah, so we were a lead gen company. Essentially, we were in the credit and the insurance market. So the example I always use is if you are a credit card company and you want somebody to fill out an application, you would come to us and you would say, hey, fill out this. We need people to fill out this application online. So we would design an online marketing program, and we would take it out to what we call our publishers. And our publishers at the time were mass emailers. And we would take the offer to them, and the credit card company would pay us $20 per application, and we would pay them $12. And we were a pay for performance. So we had no skin in the game. We just sat in the middle and made cash.
Yep.
And we were doing 10, 12,000 applications a day.
Wow.
When the VCs came for us.
Yep.
And just making money, just hand over fist. But again, this was prior to canned spam, et cetera. We were probably dropping between 200 and 300 million emails a day.
Jeez. Wow.
Just in the wild west of early email.
Yeah. What does success look like to you?
Success to me is I don't have to get up and go to work, nor have I in the last 16 years. I can go where I want and do what I want, and I can run my businesses from my cell phone. I was skiing for 32 days in January, February, and March. Now I'm out at the beach for 2 weeks. I don't have to look at prices. I don't have to worry about what things cost. As I like to say, I'm not a billionaire. I don't have a giant mansion. I don't have a Ferrari in my garage, but I also don't go to work, and I don't care what things cost. If I want to do it, I do it. So that, to me, that's freedom.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Oh gosh, so part of my book, I call this the 5 keys to success. And the number one thing you need to do if you're an entrepreneur is you need to get a coach. You need to get a coach and mentor who can flatten the learning curve, help you avoid the mistakes that you are going to make, and significantly increase the speed at which you can grow your business. That is 100% the number one thing.
Yep. But what about in marketing though? The number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Well, that's a general question. That's a big question. I think it depends on the market, the product.
Yep.
There's so many ways to do marketing. I mean, it's almost impossible to answer that without having a specific company.
Yep. And how did you fund your business? Obviously, the most recent ones well-funded from your previous exits, but starting out the lawn, the landscaping business, that was...
Landscaping, it was me and a shovel and a truck, and we built it from there. I got into the insurance business, and we actually were doing what we call advance pay to our sales force. So we were borrowing money. I think I borrowed $250,000 to launch that. We got into the internet space. My partner threw in $560,000 cash out of his pocket. He was the senior partner. That's how that one got funded. And then after that, everything came out of pocket with me because we had the money to do it.
Yep. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry? Well, you've really got 2 industries, the real estate and the restaurants.
I would, if I knew then what I know now, I would focus way more on real estate.
Yeah.
Real estate just has a long-term value to build equity and cash flow and double your assets over time. I mean, they're just, and the tax benefits, my income from real estate is basically tax-free. I tell my kids, you're 24 and 29, buy a house every year for the next 25 years, and you're going to be set for life in your 40s.
Yeah, that's very good advice. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
So the big lesson I learned in my first failure, and this is in my first and second book. So I was 21 when we started. We grew. I started making money. I went from being dirt poor broke and to, at the time, this would be 1984, 85, 86. I'm making $120,000 a year, and I thought I was rich. And so what the mistake a lot of young or early entrepreneurs make is I bought 2 houses, I bought a Mercedes, I bought a big SUV, I bought a motorcycle and a sports car and racked up my credit cards and went on vacation. And when I lost my largest customer, my entire world crumbled. I had no safety net. I had no cash. I had no savings. I had no diversity in my customer base. And when I had that hit happen, I lost everything. And that is a lesson I've taken with me forever. And I'll tell you, in COVID, when we hit COVID, I had to shut down 7 restaurants and lay off 150 people in one day. But because of the lessons I learned 30 years ago, we had cash reserves. We didn't have any debt. We were set up. And COVID thinned out the herd. It took out the weak, and the rest of us that were still around flourished after that. So you need to be very careful not to put yourself in a position where you can lose everything.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
In my case, I didn't start succeeding at a high level until I found a mentor. And I hate to go back to that point, but it's true. In fact, I just did a podcast the other day, and it's called Stop Taking Your Own Damn Advice, which is what I did for the first 15 years. And it's why we continued to not succeed at the level I wanted to. And it wasn't until I decided to let somebody else lead that ship, that we really took off and started making money.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
The employees.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been sued 5 times now for stuff had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
They just tend to they go after each other, and I'm the one that gets sued.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I agree. I think people are the hardest thing in small business, and where the value's at, you can't do it on your own. But yeah, people are difficult. What do you love most about growing a small business?
I am a builder and a fixer by nature, right? In fact, I just ran for political office last year in our city council in our town. And I did it because there's so many things to fix in a city. You can be as busy as you want to be. So
Yeah.
as I've always said, I'm a builder. So if you look at the companies that I built, the internet company, after we sold it, it quadrupled in revenue and value. The insurance agency I sold, after I sold it, has probably 10x from where it was when we had it. And they power half the country's health insurance over here, health insurance enrollment platforms. Another one I launched powers our Medicare, 1-800-Medicare over here. So I'm the guy that gets in there and builds them. That's why I do the well-funded startup through 10 million. And then I love building. I don't like managing. And this is the point with my restaurants. I'm to the point now where it's just being managed, and that is boring for me.
Yeah.
So build and manage, that excites me. Fixing a problem, figuring it out, that's good stuff.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Biggest mindset shift. I'm gonna go repeat this one. Stop taking your own damn advice. When I learned not to listen to myself all the time, that I didn't have all the answers. I like to use this example, and I use Jack Welch. Jack Welch is huge CEO over here, one of the best ever. And Jack was very famous for asking questions and not answering them. And one of the biggest shifts in my mind was getting to the point where I learned that I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. The key to success is asking the right questions. I tell my leadership team this all the time. Ask the right questions and keep asking them, and you will eventually come up with the answer. You don't have to know everything.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Paying attention to the numbers in your organization. They are the key to your success or failure. I tell young entrepreneurs this too. I've done 2 entrepreneur podcasts in classrooms, one in high school and one in college. And they said, what courses do we need to take? And I said, listen, you need to take accounting, not because you need to be a CPA and not because you need to really understand everything, but you need to understand what your accountant is telling you and how it affects your business. And if you will learn accounting, and if you will learn the numbers within your organization, and you will look at them every single day, you will see the problems, you'll see the opportunities, and you will ultimately do better than if you don't. Too many entrepreneurs, they just don't look at the numbers because they think it goes over their head, or they don't understand it. And that's a huge downfall for small businesses.
Yep, I totally agree with that. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, adding people to the team is always going to be one of the toughest things we do. And I think one of the challenges we have as entrepreneurs, and I tell people this all the time, is nobody you hire is ever going to be as good as you. So forget that. In fact, if you could find somebody that's 70 to 80% as good as you, that is a huge win. It's huge. But if you're going to bring that person in, you're going to have to understand that they don't know everything you know. They are going to fail, and you need to allow them to fail so that they can learn the things that you've already learned. If you fire somebody every time they fail, then you're going to be churning people in your organization like crazy. So bring them in, let them fail. I don't give my leadership all the answers ever. In fact, I always make the joke that I'm useless. Don't ask me anything because I have no idea. But it's because I want them to learn. And if they fail, and it costs me some money, but ultimately it gains me time because I don't have to be there making all the decisions and doing everything. So bring people in. As long as they learn from their failure, let them continue to fail and learn, because eventually they'll be the person you need.
Yep, totally agree. I've got a funny vignette or story from one of my early companies, web design development company. I was meeting with a nun at a residential college at a university in Melbourne, and we're sitting there meeting. The door, someone knocked on the door, and this person came in, asked the question of the nun who ran the college, and after they left, the nun just turned to me and said, I've always found when we have new people start, it's good to give them not to give them everything, but give them stuff at 80% so they can work out that last 20% and start to feel part of the team, and they're adding value, and you don't just give them everything on a silver platter. I thought that was a really interesting insight, her approach to onboarding new team members.
Interesting. I with our team, I do this when we bring them into meetings. I always say, listen, there's no dumb question and there's no dumb answer. I retain veto power. I will grant you that.
Yeah.
But you can override me. So be passionate about what you want to do. And half the time I'm like, fine, you win. Go do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
This gets back to making your people feel like they're important, making them feel like they bring value, giving them credit for the wins. As an entrepreneur, you don't need all the wins. You need to pass that around. If your people feel valuable, if they feel like they're contributing, and if they feel like they have some wins, you're going to have a much happier culture, and people are going to want to work for you. Yeah. I did a little podcast the other day, and we talked about the difference between power and force, right? When you manage by power, you manage through collaboration. When you manage by force, you manage through intimidation. You have to use your power and not your force if you want to keep your team on board and keep them happy.
Yep. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Balance for me, early on, again, and unfortunately, I call myself one of the entrepreneurial marriage statistics. When I was young, I was head down, dark to dark for 20 years. I didn't pay attention to my wife the way I should. And when we hit it, I remember I said, hey, guess what? We won. Now we can go do anything we want to do. And she said, guess what? I don't want to do it with you anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a tough lesson.
Yeah.
So you need to pay attention to your family and your wife, treat them like they need to be treated. Otherwise, by the time you have everything you want in life, you're going to lose them.
Never heard it before.
And that was a tough lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, I know very well because I've never heard it before, but I'm also one of those marital statistics. One of the big reasons for that, my marriage failing, I believe, was exactly what you've just described. Too focused on the businesses and not enough on obviously the marriage and the relationship. So it's something I'm very passionate about talking with business owners, particularly people early in their journey, because it's, you get very excited about so many things to do. I've got this great idea and vision, etc. But you've got to keep that balance in the back of your mind. Otherwise, you're going to destroy a lot of relationships, not just marriages, but also friendships and your family, etc. So it's really, really important. And the other thing I think a lot of people miss is what I ask them, what is your number? How much money do you want to exit for? You're going to be happy with? Because, a lot of people are going to continue working into their 70s and 80s because we're living longer. It's good for our mental health. It might only be part-time, but if you do the numbers, even if you don't run a business, you can still save enough to live a very good lifestyle at the end of it. So you don't necessarily need to put in 60 hours a week or 80 hours a week, especially if you've got a young family. You can invest that time in building the bond with the kids before they flee the nest and don't want to talk to you.
Absolutely, 100%. Seen it too many times.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Well, if you consider the fact that I failed out of high school, and today I consider myself to be an accounting wizard.
Yep.
My entire education came through reading. Again, I'm 57 years old, so we didn't have podcasts back in the day. We had to pick up a book and read it. And I've still got a book. My bookshelves at my house are huge. I've got hundreds and hundreds of business and self-development books that I just absorbed over the years. And I do them today. I probably got 2 more books laying there on my nightstand that I've got to pick up and read now. So educate yourself. The difference between you today and you 5 years from now are the people you hang out with, the books and podcasts you listen and read to. That's just a fact.
Yep.
If you want to be more than you are, you need to change who you are. And that's how you do it.
And you've mentioned coaches and mentors before. Any other advice around that for the audience?
Super. Yes, 100%. So here's my number one rule in coaching and mentoring. You need to vet the person that you are allowing to give you advice, right? I jokingly say I can get a coaching certificate online for $149. It does not mean I know what I'm talking about. And I knew so many coaches out there that have never built a successful business. There's no possible way that they can help you. No. You need to find somebody who is literally 10 steps ahead of you in whatever it is you want to do, and use that person. I can tell you today, I have a podcast coach and I have a business coach. I have two actually that are helping me because these are the two things I'm focusing right now is building my mastermind and building my podcast. So at every level, you've got to have somebody that's helping you because there's always somebody 10 steps ahead that can take those mistakes out from in front of you. But you got to vet that person. You got to vet them hard. I know too many people talking to fluffy coaches who don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah. Yes. Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
I do not. I have people that I work with, which are my coaches, but I don't have a board of directors. No.
Now, Brian, you're one of the few that we've had on that has exited a business. Some good exits, some not so good exits. Do you have any advice for the audience listening if they're thinking about exiting their business one day?
I think that's a personal decision. And you said it a minute ago. So in my case, because I like to build and not manage, if I start building a company and it gets to a point where I'm bored with it and somebody offers me money, I'm going to take it. I can tell you that when we sold the internet company, it was 32 million in revenue the day we sold it. And within 12 months, it was 60 million. But that's because somebody bigger took over and I'm happy with the money we took off the table. So if you're happy with the money they're offering you and you want to go do something exciting like I do, I'm ADHD, right? So I'm always wanting to do something different. Then do it. On the other hand, I have a very good friend and their family built their business over 50 years from their father starting it all the way to them. And they sold it for hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's a personal decision. When you feel like you're ready to do something different and somebody offers you enough money, take it.
Right, Brian, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Getting out of your own way and checking your ego.
Yeah.
You're going to have to check your ego and get out of your own way if you're going to grow. Because the fact is, if you're growing your first business, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to make the proper decisions. You don't know how to process business information. And that's why you need a coach and a mentor. Get out of your own way.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
I have 3. My favorite business books are A, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, B, Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, and C, The E-Myth. In fact, if you read my books, those books are just woven with all the things I've learned in all these books. Those are my favorite 3.
Yeah, all great. Those 3 books are probably my top 10 as well. And Robert Kiyosaki's second book, I assume you've read that. I really enjoyed Cash Flow Quadrant.
Yep. In fact, again, and we talk about the 4 personalities, the entrepreneur, we talk about the salesperson, we talk about investing, we talk about all that kind of stuff.
Yep. Excuse me. Sorry, getting over a cold. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
I've got a couple that I listen to. I love Bradley over here, and I love Ed Milet. Those are probably my 2 biggest podcasts that I listen to. Anybody that's talking about positive business, how to grow, how to keep yourself out of trouble, those are the ones that I like.
Yeah. One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
A tool to help grow? Oh gosh, depends on the business, right? I think you need to learn accounting, and I think you need to get a good mentor, and I think you need to get a CRM system. In my case, I can run businesses without being there because I have tools that I've developed for my business that allow me to do that. On my phone, my iPhone right here, I've got an app that tracks everything inside the restaurant chain. I don't ever have to step foot, but I can click on my app and look at individual sales, stores, and then you combine that with cameras. I literally can be there without ever being there. So again, I think it goes back to the business. I've built tools for my specific businesses, and I think you need to do that as well.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day 1 of starting out 36 years ago?
There is a lottery ticket in your pocket. You're going to win. Relax.
It's great advice. Thanks so much for your time today, Brian. I've really enjoyed it. Congratulations on the growth and success. Several companies that you've exited and sold, and now moving into the phase of helping other business owners not make the mistakes both you and I have made. So congratulations and thanks for your time.
Troy, I appreciate it very much. Thank you.